Today, we're going to talk about the rich life of Mahinda Rajapaksa and his family. Welcome to Reign Supreme, a channel to impact influential, powerful minds. Corruption thrives in places where money and power are at stake, but it may also thrive in places where there is a lack of accountability and when the public is distrustful of the government. We live in an era populated by some of the world's most ethical and, on the other hand, most corrupt politicians, like Sri Lanka's Mahinda Rajapaksa. The strong family has maintained authority over the country's politics for decades, as well as having a significant influence on vital state institutions like the national airline and state companies to flourish their riches. So, how wealthy are Mahinda and his family? Stick around until the end to find out about Sri Lanka's former president. Rajapaksa was born on November 18, 1945, in Weerakitty, a small village in the southern area of Hambantota in Sri Lanka. In 2005, he was elected as the 6th president of Sri Lanka and commander-in-chief of the Sri Lankan Armed Forces. WikiLeaks, run by Julian Assange, showed that Mahinda was behind the killings of Tamil civilians and prisoner militants towards the conclusion of the conflict. He won Sri Lanka's first election after decades of civil war, and despite predictions that it would be close, he won by a huge margin. As a world leader, he's one of the most successful leaders and was born a Sri Lankan billionaire. Percy Mahinda Rajapaksa's late father, Don Alwyn Rajapaksa, had taken up his brother Don Matthew Rajapaksa's place in the State Council of Ceylon when the latter died in 1945. D.A. Rajapaksa was a member of parliament for Beliata, where he served as cabinet minister of agriculture and land under Wijayananda Danayake. His mother, Dandina Rajapaksa, was from Palatuwa in Matara. This richest man was the second oldest of 9 children, 6 of whom were boys and 3 of whom were girls. Jamal and Jayaninthi are his older siblings, while his younger siblings are Tudor, Gotabaya, Basil, Priti, Dudley, and Gandini. Furthermore, many members of Rajapaksa's family are now involved in politics. In 1983, Rajapaksa married the child psychologist and educator Chiranthi Wickramasinghe. He has 3 sons, Namal, Yoshita, and Rohita. Namal Rajapaksa was elected as a member of parliament for the Hambantota area in April 2010, receiving the most preference votes in his father's previous district. He was again re-elected to parliament in 2015 after receiving the most votes from the Hambantota region. Another son, Yoshita Rajapaksa, was commissioned as an acting sub-lieutenant in the Sri Lanka Navy in March 2009. In addition to being the former president of Sri Lanka, his older brother, Gotabaya Rajapaksa, is a former secretary to the Minister of Defense. His tenure at the Ministry of Defense came to an end on the same day as Mahinda Rajapaksa's presidency, in January 2015. In April 2010, Basil Rajapaksa was elected to the Sri Lankan parliament, representing the Gampaha region. Later on, he was given the title of Minister of Economic Development and was arrested on suspicion of corruption in April 2015. Later, he then served as Sri Lanka's Minister of Finance from 2021 to 2022, until he resigned in the middle of the anti-government demonstrations of 2022. Jamal Rajapaksa, the elder brother of Mahinda Rajapaksa, has been a member of parliament and was chosen to be the 14th parliament speaker. Before we get into the riches of the born billionaire Rajapaksa, let me tell you about his early life. Rajapaksa was raised as a Buddhist by his vast upper caste family. He did not pursue undergraduate studies, but he graduated from Colombo Law College in 1974 with a law degree. At the age of 24, Rajapaksa became Sri Lanka's youngest ever member of parliament when he was elected to the seat left by his father. The Hambantota area was his new constituency when he left parliament in 1977 and concentrated on his legal practice till his re-entry into Parliament in 1989. After being well known as an advocate for human rights while in Parliament, his reputation was subsequently tarnished as president when Sri Lanka was identified as one of the world's most hazardous nations for independent journalists. Later on, President Chandrika Kumaratunga appointed Rajapaksa as Labour Minister from 1994 to 2001, and Minister of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources from 1997 to 2001. In addition, Kumaratunga made Rajapaksa the Prime Minister in 2004, and the next year, she said she thought he would be a good person to take over after her. Moreover, as President of Sri Lanka, Mahinda Rajapaksa was hailed as a hero for putting an end to an almost 3-decade civil conflict when the Tamil Tigers were defeated in 2009. During the victory parades and other large-scale public events, he was likened to the Buddhist rulers of the Sinhala nation. He was also known as the Terminator to relatives and enemies alike for his brutal smashing of Tamil rebels to conclude a decades-long civil war. The charges that his army had murdered at least 40,000 minority Tamil civilians in the latter months of the conflict strengthened his tough guy reputation in the eyes of the majority Sinhalese. He was widely regarded as the architect of Mahinda's white van abductions, in which dissidents and journalists were kidnapped in unmarked cars and vanished, purportedly as victims of extrajudicial executions. On the other hand, the Sri Lankan author, Mr. Pereira, 2017, wrote books about the Rajapaksa's family and Mahinda's rise to power, focusing on the family and how Mahinda groomed himself for power. Now, let's get into the rich life of this man. In terms of net worth, the sum is more or less a mystery, or maybe a better term would be ambiguous. And with no big income source, he came under examination after Sri Lanka's financial troubles began. At least in front of the public, he shows himself as a religious person. He wears pendants and consults astrologers before making decisions. He is well known for collecting a big collection of costly rings as lucky charms, some of which include colorful stones and elephant horns. Because of this, he is also called Lord of the Rings. The collection of presidential cars, which had a value of more than $850,000, had increased to more than $9 million during the family's reign. This all became very easy to achieve when the former president resigned and the Rajapaksa family installed their own president, which gave them the power to approve any kind of fund for their luxuries from people's tax money. Former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa was given $12 million in private property. According to local media in Mali, an extra property worth $3 million was included in the deal and will be utilized as lodging for the family's workers and security. According to the article, Rajapaksa's family intends to buy a 6-room home of 24,000 square feet. It can easily accommodate 12 people and 6 children. The property also has a private pool, a gym, a sauna, and other comforts. Furthermore, Sri Lankan investigators have discovered more than $2 billion that were covertly moved to accounts in Dubai by persons connected to former President Mahinda Rajapaksa's administration, they said. The money, according to the spokesperson for the cabinet, Rajitha Senaratne, makes up 1/5 of the entire amount of so-called black money that the authorities believe was illegally hidden away in other countries. He says, "We have evidence that persons linked to the previous regime had more than $10 billion, more than our country's foreign reserves." Senaratne claimed that while describing the accounts that were discovered in Dubai, one individual from a prominent family owned $1,067 million. Another account in the name of a parliament member had more than $500 million. And a secretary to a highly significant person had more than $500 million, jointly with another person who is well known for corruption. Senaratne did not reveal who had the accounts since the investigation is still ongoing. He also said that it had discovered massive transfers, including one of $600 million, from accounts linked to persons who had worked for Rajapaksa's administration. As per Foreign Affairs Minister Mangala Samarawira, the family of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa has gathered $18 billion in assets through legal and illegal means. But now, because of all the criticisms and charges made against the Rajapaksa family, it looks like the Rajapaksas had lost their grasp on power in Sri Lanka after decades of in and out of office. Their dynasty is crumbling away as the national debt crisis has spun out of hand. And with pandemic worries, an increase in food and fuel prices, thanks to the conflict in Ukraine, adding concerns from years of questionable economic choices, their rule on Sri Lankans has mostly ended. And today, most of Rajapaksa's family members who are in office have escaped the country, with the President Gotabaya Rajapaksa fled to Singapore. Many lessons can be learned from the rise and fall of Mahinda Rajapaksa by authoritarians, power-hungry people, voters, and patriots alike. In short, Rajapaksa family leaves a legacy that he did not intend, one of loss, shame, and public animosity. We've now made it to the end of our video, and we thank you for staying with us. We hope you've gained valuable knowledge today. Make sure to like and subscribe for future videos so you'll never miss out. We have a new one every week. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one.